Hello, and welcome to the Senior Edge podcast. My name is Russ, and joining me is my co-host, Sin. Today is an exciting day for us, as this is our first interview podcast. We are especially happy to spend time with our guest and dear friend, Ray McDonald, just yards from the ocean in sunny Pismo Beach, California.
Russ introduced Ray and me 6 years ago in Pismo Beach. The three of us enjoyed a fun lunch on the pier, with me experiencing my first chowder and fries, while Ray, after some coaxing, serenaded us with his new song, I'm a Washed Up Surfer. Now, our creative friend Ray has written a memoir called Merle Haggard Was a Friend of Mine, about his years with Merle from the 1960s to 2016.
While Ray and I discuss his book, Sin will be monitoring our recording session and keeping us on track.
Now, I must say, without further delay, Russ and Ray, take it away.
In Pismo Beach, my name's Russ. I am with Russ and Sin and thesenioredge.com, and we've been blessed with the presence of Ray McDonald, who has written an outstanding book called Merle Haggard Was a Friend of Mine. And I had never been a particular knowledgeable person or even someone who appreciated country music that much until I encountered Ray. And now Ray has introduced me over the past 10 years or so to a substantial appreciation for country music and Merle Haggard in particular. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, the Senior Edge. It's an absolute honor to be the first interview for the new podcast. And for the people that are going to hear this podcast, we hope you enjoy these remarks about my friend Merle, who was a great man, a great human being. In fact, you mentioned something earlier, Russ, about his humility and what a great man he was to everyone, especially his fans, but his personal friends and his family and etc. He really was a very, very decent human being.
What would you say someone like me who has not been particularly up close and personal with country music that I should really focus on a little bit to understand Merle Haggard and what he contributed to country music?
Well, his songs were the reason that he became famous. Of course, he was a great singer, guitarist, fiddler, entertainer, songwriter, but his songs that he wrote were the songs that made him. Those were the songs he wrote from his heart about his observations of life. Everything from having problems drinking to ex-wives to being in prison. He was in prison and just had a pretty rough life, but he turned it into a wonderful life of music, and that's his legacy, music and the songs that he wrote and sang. He could sing any kind of music, but he was remarkable talent, and I was fortunate enough to meet him and wrote this book, Merle Haggard Was a Friend of Mine, so the stories wouldn't be lost. It's meant to be an insightful book about Merle Haggard from a kid like me when I met him when I was 14 to the day he died and on his birthday, which was April 6th, 2016. He died on his 79th birthday, Russ.
Born and died on the same April 6th. My goodness.
1937. He was 79 years old.
You know, you saw Merle up close and personal from before the fame, long before the fame, when Merle was inventing and reinventing himself.
Yeah.
And after you're up close and personal, then you saw him after he became famous. Would you say he was the same human being before and after?
Oh, yeah.
Share that with me a little bit.
Well, he was humble. He realized he had a tremendous gift, and he used the gift, and he worked on it, and he completely immersed himself in his gift of singing, songwriting, playing his guitar. And then, of course, when he did his TV, radio, recordings, whatever. Had to be perfect. He was a perfectionist. And that's how come he had 39 number ones. I think he had 80 top tens. His legacy is well known throughout the world, millions of fans. But I wanted the people to have an insight into Merle as a human being through my perspective. I was just a 14-year-old kid when I met him. I'm 75 years old now. And here we are talking about this great legacy of Merle Haggard, because I'm from Bakersfield, you're from Bakersfield, California, and that's where Merle's from. So that's why we're here talking about him.
So would you say that really from day one, when he committed himself personally, intellectually, and emotionally to becoming a singer, songwriter, musician, artist, that he had the discipline to really do that?
Well, that's a good way to put it, because a lot of people probably might have got to, have maybe one or two or three number ones and then kind of slack off. Not him. He worked hard. He made sure that everything he did was great, and he knew it. He knew it was good.
Well, those recording sessions that I read about in the book, I mean, all the incredible rock and roll people and the Beatles and the Doors and everybody else that are related to in the book there, that you had at least sort of an elbow rub relationship with, is astounding to me. Tell me a little bit about that and how that was going on with Merle, who was not a rock and roll guy.
No, but you know what? He did tell me, Russ, that many times that he wanted to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But he was a country artist. It was country in his soul, country in his voice, and he was from Bakersfield. His mother and father came from the Dust Bowl in Oklahoma and settled in Bakersfield. So his dad was an Okie, and his mother was from Arkansas. They were Dust Bowl refugees, wound up in Bakersfield. So he was a country boy, but that didn't mean he didn't like Elvis Presley, because he did. And Chuck Berry, I'll tell you what, I didn't find out till way late in his life he loved Chuck Berry's music. And I said, Chuck Berry? He said, yeah, if I ever met Chuck Berry, I wouldn't know how to talk. I don't think I could talk. And I said, golly. And he goes, don't you know that's where Working Man Blues came from? That's my take on Chuck Berry. And Working Man Blues was, as most Haggard fans know, is one of his most adored and famous songs, Working Man Blues.
Well, that's an interesting take. I really hadn't thought about him as being somebody who took that kind of, what's the word, eclectic? He sort of took an eclectic approach, and what was excellent from any of those people, appreciated them as artists, as musicians. That's fantastic. I love it.
Well, we're just talking here in the living room in my little apartment in Pismo Beach. We're friends. This is a podcast that's for the Senior Edge. We got the edge going today, bro.
That's exactly right.
And it's edgy. It's going to get edgier.
We have Ray McDonald here. For those of you just tuning in, this might be worth rewinding all the way to the beginning, because this is a slice of an interesting view of Merle Haggard, and someone that, with me, that Merle Haggard took under his wing literally and figuratively, and helped form Ray McDonald.
Well, he certainly did. I mean, I loved his music. We'll go right to the beginning of why I met and how I met Merle Haggard. So I'm from Oildale, California, which is a suburb of Bakersfield. Merle also was raised in Oildale. And his stepsons I met at Beardsley Junior High in Oildale back in 1964. And we became very good friends, almost like brothers. And then Bonnie Owens, Merle's wife in 1965, she married Merle in 1965, but that's Buck Owens' ex-wife. They divorced in 1952. So it was 13 years later that Merle and Bonnie got together, Bonnie Owens, Buddy and Mike Owens' mother. And I asked if I could live at their house with them, and they said, yeah. So I moved into Merle Haggard, Bonnie Owens, and Bonnie's mama's house, grandma's house in Oldale in 1965. And my whole sophomore year, me and Mike and Buddy lived with them. Here's Merle Haggard in the living room playing his guitar, singing Mama Tried. Well, what in the world? This great singer and the nicest guy. It was just a wonderful fairy tale for us to grow up around this man, Merle Haggard. He took us in like we were his own sons.
Wow, that's such an interesting piece of history there, that Bonnie Owens, the ex of Buck Owens, and there was, what, 10 years or more between Buck Owens...
13 to be
Or 13,
exact.
excuse me. Okay.
Since Bonnie, Bonnie was single there for 13 years. She was a waitress, singing waitress, and sang on the Cousin Herb Trading Post show, a live show Monday through Friday in Bakersfield, and she was a big star on her own. But she never remarried until she met Merle, and they married in 1965.
Did they perform a lot during that early period together?
That's interesting you should say that, because the first album he did on Capitol Records was a duet album with Bonnie called Just Between the Two of Us. So in the early 60s, they did sing together, and then they fell in love, and Merle actually stole Bonnie from Fuzzy Owen, who was his manager and was Bonnie's boyfriend for a long time, Fuzzy Owen. And Merle stole her, and they got married in Mexico, and they had to call him up in 1965 and go, hey, Fuzzy, we got married.
Wow.
Well, he already had Merle on his tiny label called Tally Records. Louis Tally and Fuzzy Owen were cousins, and they recorded Merle in the early 60s. He was on this tiny little label, but they knew he was the greatest singer they'd ever heard. They even said so. You're the best damn singer we've ever heard.
Wow.
And so they knew it. And then they sold his contract to Capitol, and then it took off like a rocket ship.
Now, how could Fuzzy forgive Merle for taking Bonnie away?
That's country music. That's country music, boy.
Oh, baby.
That's the way I looked at it. And also because Fuzzy, he knew that this was a superstar. He knew it. You think he's going to give him up because he married his girlfriend? So what? How come Fuzzy didn't marry? He had all that time to marry her.
So Fuzzy was man enough and just enough mercenary in his soul to be able to forgive Merle Haggard for taking his love of his life away.
He did. And what was really one of the most intriguing portions of the time that I was living with Merle and Bonnie's mama, Buddy and Mike, Bonnie and Fuzzy was the steel guitar player in Merle's first band, as a matter of fact, and also his manager. Well, the first time they went out on tour, just those three, because they'd go to little bars all over America and back and forth. So Merle played guitar, Bonnie sang, and Fuzzy played the steel, and that's what they did. They got in Fuzzy's 1953 Chrysler wagon. We helped them load up their guitars and their amplifiers and their clothes, and they put down the back seat like you would in those days. And I'll never forget this. Fuzzy's driving, Bonnie was in the middle, and Merle was on the passenger side waving at us. Goodbye, we'll be back in a month. We're going to New York, and we'll be back in a month.
And they're leaving these teenage boys behind.
But with Grandma there
with Grandma.
To keep an eye on us and cook for us and do everything for us. I'll never forget that scene. And I'm thinking, wow, a year ago, Fuzzy was with Bonnie, and then Bonnie and Merle finally hooked up. I could tell when I was around them before they became married that they were in love with each other. You could tell it. You're like, boy, they sure get along good. And she's a beautiful woman. Bonnie was like 8 years his senior. When they married, he was 29, right around there, and she was 37, 38.
Wow, that's a pretty good age difference between a man and a woman in that age.
But there's something else too, because she was the sweetest woman, a beautiful woman, great talent, high intelligence, and did everything that Merle needed of her as far as the professional life goes. Singing, songwriting, telling Merle, you got it, let's keep going. Whatever she did for him. Sang on all his records. But then when it came to being a wife and a mother, she was an angel. He just absolutely adored her.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, we're just rolling along here. But I want to tell you, I really appreciate you letting me be on the Senior Edge. This book, Merle Haggard Was a Friend of Mine, is it's already 4 years old, but it's brand new to a lot of people that don't know about it, but they'll learn about it. And I really suggest, if you have a chance to get it, it's not for me or any small amount of money I might make off it, which ain't much. It's for his fans, and the fans that are going to come along and hear Merle Haggard's music and go, damn, this guy is the greatest. The ones who already know that are by the millions. But I wrote it so the stories wouldn't be lost. There's 52 chapters. There's stories in there about Johnny Cash, George Jones, Gene Autry, some of Merle's best friends, Louis Talley, Fuzzy Owen, friends of mine that got to know Merle and loved being around him. But so anyway, there's 106 photographs. A lot of them were given to me by Lillian Haggard, Merle's sister, who has since passed away. She died, I think, 1 or 2 years ago. She was 102 years old.
Wow.
And he adored her. It was his only sister. But anyway, the Haggard legacy will last for hundreds of years. As a matter of fact, I wanted to bring this up, Russ. Ethan Hawke, the actor.
Yes. One of my favorite actors.
He and his wife, Ryan, and some fellas from Rolling Stone magazine, as we're talking today, August 22nd, 2025, are putting together a documentary on Merle Haggard. And it's called Merle Haggard Highway 99.
Outstanding.
It's in motion and has been, from what I understand, at least a year now, working on this Merle Haggard Highway 99 documentary. And I asked Ryan Hawke, Ethan Hawke's wife, on the phone when I called them last September. It's been almost a year. I asked her, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this for Merle? And they go, yes, we're doing it for Merle because Merle needs contemporary recognition.
I love that. That's people who have been moved.
Yeah.
Emotionally moved by his music.
Oh, sure. And the story alone is one of the greatest American success stories in history. You don't go to San Quentin when you're 20 years old, get out 2.5 years later, and 10 years later become the biggest country music artist in the world.
Every one of these stories in the book, first of all, I have to say I love the way you write. When you first gave me the PDF and I was looking at this, of that material that was pretty raw during that stage there. That's been, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
When you first put that together, I thought to myself, this has a special voice. That's what I like about this. And I'm not the right editor to be putting that together. In that voice that's Ray's voice about Ray's life and Ray's experience. And you found a good editor. You found somebody who was a sounding board to help you. Help me a little bit understand the writing of the book and how you came up with the 52 chapters and the whole arc of that development.
Well, that's such an interesting aspect of the whole project. I wanted to write this book. I didn't know what in the hell I was doing. I'm not an author. My grammar's terrible, but I could spell. So I started typing this stuff out. Took me 2-3 years to type it out, but after you read it back, it looks like somebody in the 8th grade that didn't know what they was doing. So I contacted a friend of mine from North High in Oildale, a friend of mine named Rebecca Sheeran. This delightful lady, she's a year older than me, but at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, she had time on her hands. She had retired. I'd retired from working, and I called her and asked her if she'd help me with it. She literally put the whole book together. The front page, the front cover, the back cover, everything in the book, all of these wonderful photographs that she put in here. She did all that. She edited it all. My son Benjamin McDonald is a journalism major from UNLV. He did about 18 chapters for me, and then he finally had to say, "Dad, I got to go back to work, man." So he helped me a lot, but she helped me immensely. Couldn't have done it without Rebecca Sharon, this great, great lady. In fact, I got to tell this real quick story about her. So when I lived in Oildale with Merle and Bonnie, Bonnie's mom, Buddy, and Mike, there was this beautiful girl that lived around the corner from us. And she was literally the most prettiest girl in the school, a year older than me. And I saw her one day and I said, "I'm going to find out who that is. I'm going to call her." So I called her. She goes, "Who's that?" I said, "Ray McDonald." "Well, who are you?" I said, "Well, I saw you around school. I think you're about the prettiest girl in school. Can I meet you?" She said, "Yeah, where do you live?" And I said, "I live half a block from you. I live at Merle Haggard's house." "Merle Haggard's house?" I said, "Yeah, I live with Buddy and Mike Owens and Bonnie Owens and Merle." She goes, "Well, I know who Merle is. I like Merle." And I said, "Well, I've got a guitar. Is it right if I bring it over and play a little bit for you?" She goes, "I got a guitar." So I got to go over to her house. Her dad was a banker. She had a beautiful family, a nice home like Merle had. And Merle had just recorded "I'm a Lonesome Fugitive." It was on a dub form. And I said, "Merle, I'm going to go to this pretty girl's house. Can I take that over and play it for her?" And he goes, "Ray." He goes, "Ray, this is the only copy I've got. It's a dub form," they call it. In other words, it hadn't been pressed and put out to the public yet. And he goes, "You can take it over there, but don't break it." All right. So I go over to her house with my guitar, which was a Martin guitar that they loaned me to take over there, and this record, "I'm a Lonesome Fugitive." She was impressed.
I'll bet.
She was impressed. And we became close friends because of that. She never really got to meet him until long, 30 years, 40 years later. I took her to his house. I took her to concerts. She got to meet, at one of Merle's concerts with Chris Christopherson, she got to meet Joan Baez and John Prine. They were there. And she was thrilled because Joan Baez was her all-time hero. She knew all her songs. And of course, if you've seen anything about Bob Dylan, it was Joan Baez that was his first love and had a lot to do with his success. She was thrilled. I think because of she got to know Merle and all that, when I asked her to help me with the book, she was more than happy to help me with the book, Russ.
Well, that's a perfect reason for her to end up as your editor. Had you known that as a teenager, you would have probably been too intimidated to know what to do at that point.
Oh, I was intimidated. Oh, man, I'll tell you, I still am. I mean, she's still a beauty, and she never married, doesn't have any children, so I didn't have to worry about any boyfriends or ex-husbands or that sort of thing. We've just been really, really good, close friends, and she really liked the idea of helping Merle's legacy because this is just a small portion of it. This is a fraction of it. He's written 2 books on his own about his life. I think that people that want to learn about Merle, they should pick them up and get them. Of course, if you go on Amazon or any website, you can find Merle Haggard Was a Friend of Mine or any books he's written that are so interesting, his life. In fact, there's a book called Hag, written by Mark Elliott. I showed it to you earlier this morning. And it's a
beautiful book.
Yeah, it is. It's great. The guy he did some great insight. He asked me a lot, and I donated what I could, pictures and stories to him. But yeah, Merle Haggard, going back to Ethan Hawke and his wife, Ryan, I still got to say that they are doing something right now that I wish Hollywood would have done a long time ago. Thank God that they appreciate music so much and his story that they're contributing to his legacy.
It's sad that that now that Merle Haggard's passed, here he's probably going to get a substantial amount of recognition among the public at large that he didn't really have outside the country community. That's the thing.
Yeah, and because of the power and the professionalism of Ethan Hawke, and of course his legacy in Hollywood and his movies, I think it's going to help. His name correlating with Merle's is going to help, don't you think?
I think so, no doubt about it. One of the other ones that I noticed you have here that was highly influential with Merle and sort of a salute to his own roots, that's my definition of it at least, is with Jimmie Rodgers. He presented this Jimmie Rodgers album, and I guess you got to hold of it as the dubs, right?
Yeah.
Before it went live and was released.
Yeah, chapter 6.
Okay.
Page 50, Same Train, a Different Time. That's the title of the album. That's the title of the chapter about Merle Haggard and his... Merle Haggard sings the great songs of Jimmie Rodgers. How many songs is on this sucker?
Oh, there's
25.
So tell me what, Jimmie Rodgers died early on, you said, of
tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis, how sad. Back during the 1930s?
Yes.
Okay, so he was only 30-ish.
Yeah.
How do you think Merle got a hold of that and started having that kind of effect on him as a country singer?
He heard it when he was a little boy.
Oh, okay.
His mom and dad played it on the Victrola.
Okay.
And on radio too. And he thought, man, Jimmie Rodgers, and learned how to play the guitar like him, sing his songs. He's the father of country music, Jimmie Rodgers. He was the first inductee into the Country Music Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Jimmie Rodgers.
Okay.
And this is for people that don't know about the history of Jimmie Rodgers. They'll learn it, and they'll hear these songs. They're so good, it's ridiculous. He's got the number one song on this is California Blues. He's got a song in here called Merle's best friend was a guy from Oildale named Dean Holloway. And they met in junior high. I think it was 6th grade at Standard Junior High down in Oildale. And I was talking to Dean one day about his favorite song that Merle ever did. And he said, Down the Old Road to Home. And it's just Merle and a guitar. It's the only cut in the hundreds of songs that Merle cut in his career where it's just Merle and his guitar.
How interesting.
It's so beautiful, you can't hardly stand it.
It's Jimmie Rodgers' song, though.
Yes, Down the Old Road to Home. I'll play it for you here in a minute.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, Dean Rowe was behind Merle all the way as far as supporting him. He was his first bus driver, his best friend, helped him write songs. He's the one who drove him for the first few years. I remember Merle pulled up into Oildale with he had a new truck with a camper on the back, and that was his touring mobile for him and the Strangers. Well, Dean drove the truck right from the start. Then they got an old funky old bus. I think it was a terrible bus. And he drove that for a few years. Then he finally started making a lot of money, got an MCI like Greyhound uses, and Dean Rowe drove that for him. But they were best friends, closer than brothers. There's a chapter in here about Dean Rowe Holloway. Just a great, great man, Merle's best friend. But anyway, there's some great songs on that album, man. Every song is a great album.
Who else do you think probably had as much of a contribution to Merle Haggard's development as a musician, as an artist, other than the roots of Jimmie Rodgers? Who?
Lefty Frizzell.
Oh, okay.
As much as anybody.
All right.
And he, in the history and in his books he's written, he admits that. He was a tremendous influence on his writing, on his singing. But Merle also was influenced by Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys immensely. And they were from the same era as Jimmie Rodgers, of course. But Merle liked Bing Crosby, too.
Oh, okay.
He liked good singers, man.
Okay.
And he, Tommy Duncan, to me, whenever we'd go out on tour, and for those that don't know it, I drove Merle's bus for the last 6 years of his career. We'd go out and we'd have hundreds of hours and thousands of miles to go. He'd come up front and we'd play. He'd want me to put some music on. So I would find as much Bob Wills music as I could find, because Bob Wills music made him happy. And Bob Wills' lead singer was Tommy Duncan, who was the country music equivalent of Bing Crosby. I mean, he was absolutely perfect singer. And I think Merle loved that guy's singing more than anybody else in country music, even though he was inspired by Jimmy Rogers, Lefty Russell, Hank Williams, all those guys, Marty Robbins. It was, to me, he made it pretty clear, Tommy Duncan was the man.
So I guess it's pretty well known that Merle Haggard had perfect pitch.
Yeah.
So he's one of those kind of guys who would home in on only the best of the best
Yeah.
when it came to a singer.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Yeah, if he'd heard a good singer, boy, he'd stop and it would just mesmerize him. He would just stop and go, wow.
What a baritone he had.
Oh, my goodness. Just this great singer. And he wrote so many great songs. Just dozens of great songs. One of the songs he wrote called Today I Started Loving You Again, he wrote with Bonnie Owens. And I think he said he had that recorded by more than 450 artists. And he made as much money or more money on that one song that he did all the other songs.
That's amazing.
Today I Started Loving You Again.
Tell me a little bit about this particular Frank Sinatra party
There was
that's in your book.
Yeah, well, a couple of things happened. Merle went to San Quentin, for those that know Merle's story, and he was released after about 2 years, 9 months. When he got out, he went straight. He started becoming a country music star, and this fellow by the name of Ronald Reagan became the governor of California. And Ronald Reagan pardoned Merle for his crimes, full pardon. And Merle, it changed his life. And the way Merle put it was, now I don't have this tail to follow me around all the time. Because if you're a convicted criminal, a felon, released from prison, it'll follow you everywhere. And it was because of Ronald Reagan. Well, Ronald Reagan became the president, as we all know. And so he called Merle and said, why don't you come and play out the Western White House from here, Santa Barbara? He did. But before that, his friend, Ronald Reagan's friend, was a guy named Frank Sinatra. And he told Frank Sinatra, why don't you put together a party for me? And Frank said, all right. He said, you put it together. You get the entertainment and we'll have a big party. Frank called Merle Haggard. And Merle told me this story this way. I've heard different versions of this story. But Merle told me this flat out. He said he was up at he had a big complex up there in Palisadro, California, near Redding. I think he had 160 acres and he had 5 houses on it. But one of them was a great big house and it had a recording studio in it. Merle had worked all day long with the boys. He said, all right, I'm going home, boys. And he was getting ready to leave and they got a phone call and Merle says, I'm done talking today. I don't no more calls, no nothing. But Louis Talley, his manager, came out and Merle's getting in his truck getting ready to leave. And Louis Talley said, hey, man, there's a phone call for you. Merle said, didn't I just tell you guys that I'm not going to take any more phone calls today? Louis said, you want to take this one. They're so serious, the way that he said it. Merle said, well, I guess I better take it. Didn't tell him what it was. So he goes in there and answers the phone, and it's Frank Sinatra calling Merle Haggard. And he says, hey, Frank. And he says, hey, man, the president wants me to put together a party, and I am putting together the party, and I thought I'd call only the best, and I called you first.
That's outstanding.
And Merle was flattered, of course, and he said, gosh, Frank, I'll have to check my schedule. And he checked his schedule, and he didn't do the party.
He didn't do the
No.
party? Oh, no.
But he loved Frank Sinatra, too. I played him one time. We were going down a highway somewhere, and I had Frank Sinatra's greatest hits, 25 songs on a CD. I said, do you feel like listening to Frank Sinatra today? And he goes, yeah. I played him all 25 songs, and he loved every single one of them. But the one that got him the most, it's in my book, Strangers in the Night.
Strangers in the Night.
Ooh.
What a classic.
Oh, it got him, boy. He
That's-
almost cried. I mean, he's listening to that song. Now, Merle wasn't listening to Frank Sinatra, but he knew about the song. And it's so poignant. It's such a great love story. You know, strangers in the night, exchanging glances. Come on. Then they would gather the rest of their life. It was such a poignant love song that when the song got done, we're driving along and he was sitting in his jump seat next to me and he leaned over to me and he goes, "That may have been his best." And Merle would get that kind of a catch in his
when
throat,
he would get
like
choke up a little bit. You knew Merle was moved.
oh boy! And then when I was 17, what's that one called? He that one got him too, boy. And of course, all those songs really got him. He of course, the orchestration, Frank's delivery,
Phrasing was unbelievable.
Superstar.
Yeah.
Willie Nelson's favorite singer is Frank Sinatra. At least I heard him say that.
An interesting one who bridged that same kind of stuff as a Ronald Reagan and all that was Gene Autry.
Ooh.
And you wrote a chapter on Gene Autry. Tell me a little bit about that.
Let me see that book. Russ has got the book in his hand. I'm going to look that up. I forgot which chapter it was. Gene Autry is God. That's funny, man. Chapter 20, 117. See, I've always looked at this book like I didn't know this person that wrote it. I don't know why. I always had that attitude towards this book. And I was intrigued by whoever this guy was. It was me writing this book about Merle Haggard. And Gene Autry is God is the name of it. I'll get to just a real quick portion of it. Merle Haggard thought cowboy movie star, singing star, radio star, television star, and business mogul Gene Autry was God. I found that out via a telephone conversation with Merle sometime back in the early 90s when we were discussing the incredible talent of Gene Autry. Merle had been a superstar in country music for over 30 years. I asked him if he'd ever met Gene Autry. He said no. They'd never been introduced, nor had he ever spoken with Gene. And this was unacceptable. Russ, to me, it was unacceptable.
That is too funny.
As soon as possible, I called Gene Autry's business office in Los Angeles and asked if I could speak with Gene. The secretary said, well, who's calling? I said, Raymond McDonald, a friend of Merle Haggard. Mr. Autry was not available at the moment, so they asked if they could take a message. I told them Merle and Gene had never spoken to one another, and it would be a pleasant surprise if Gene would call Merle. I gave the secretary Merle's home number and asked if they could have Gene call at his convenience. About 2 hours later, Merle called me. He asked if I'd given his phone number to Gene. Yeah, I said, proud of my accomplishment. Merle was incredulous but not mad. Annoyed would probably be a better description. He said with a noticeable change in his voice, Raymond, don't you know you don't just call God?
I love it.
That's what I mean. I didn't expect that.
You just didn't know you were a messenger.
I didn't know. I'll get back to the book. I say,
You're like the Mercury between two gods.
that's what I figured. I answered no, a little sheepishly, explaining how I had felt it would be a pleasant surprise. Merle happened to be downtown getting a haircut at the local barbershop when Gene called, so he didn't speak with him that day. Merle asked me to let him know if I was planning any more surprises. And if so, please ask first. I apologized, then curious, I asked if he had returned Gene's call. I'm sure he had, although he wasn't willing to share anything about the conversation with me. But Merle did tease me, telling me they had a delightful conversation. Gene Autry was a well-known star in the 40s. He had a personal friendship with Merle's idol, Jimmie Rodgers. I'm sure they would have had plenty to discuss. Merle never did reveal what they talked about when they spoke. I suppose that was my punishment.
They left you out of the loop.
They left me out, man.
After you were the Mercury that brought them together.
And
that is too funny.
I know that he appreciated that.
That's good. That's good.
He was such a fan. Didn't have the courage to call God. You don't call God.
That's another example of his humility.
Yes, absolutely. He was a big fan. I mean, he was a bigger fan, more of a fan than most people because he was a musician. And he realized what they'd already accomplished. They had already accomplished so much. You know, back to Gene Autry again, we're talking about modern technology one day, and we all had iPhones, and about 2013 or 14, he started asking me about my iPhone. He goes, Ray, tell me about that iPhone. And I said, well, the greatest thing to me about the iPhone is I probably have 700 songs in my iPhone, and I can download a song right now and put it on my iPhone, and it'll be there forever. I said, you don't have to go to the store anymore and buy records or CDs. You just find it online, download it. It's in your phone. You can use it on a stereo. You can put it on anything you want. And he goes, oh, yeah? He goes, well, put on, see if you can get that silver-haired daddy of mine on there right now. I said, Gene Autry's silver-haired daddy of mine. He goes, yeah. So I said, all right. We're in his living room, and I got it up, found it real quick, downloaded it. In 40 seconds, I was playing it for him. And he's like, oh, my gosh. He goes, we're going down to the store right damn now and get me an iPhone. And I'm going to put all the music on there I want. And I go, yeah, let's do it. So we went down to the iPhone store. He always carried a couple $1,000 cash in his pocket. And we go in there and give me the best one you got, you know. How much is it a month and all that jazz. It was like, we got out there, it was like $1,200. And they go, it'll be $1,200, Mr. Haggard. And he goes, ha, ha, ha. Reaches in, pulls out a bunch of hundreds. There you go. Got his first iPhone. And then he started putting his music on it. Boy, he caught up with modern technology. He learned how to get it real quick. He was highly intelligent anyway. But he was, like most people, he was kind of lacking behind in the new modern technology. He didn't want to play with that. He wanted to play his records or his CDs. But now, with the phone, he can have Gene Autry or Tommy Duncan or anybody he wants. He was just amazed.
I think that's such a cool story from Gene Autry and modern technology and how Merle caught up with all that. I mean, that's a special piece of history there. So in your own life, Ray, looking back on this with Merle Haggard, I mean, the guy taught you how to put a worm on a friggin' hook.
Yeah.
Right?
And salmon eggs and how to fish.
And the whole thing, the stuff that, the dirty little boy stuff that we learned to do and that we wish Dad would show us or whatever. And then you got a guy like Merle who lost his father early on.
Yeah.
You know, it was his shot at sharing being a man with boys.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Me and Buddy and Mike, he took us fishing for the first time ever on the Kern River, 1965.
Big Rock.
Hit the rock. And it took us down there and pitch black, and him and Fuzzy had flashlights for us so we wouldn't fall in the river. And they said, if you fall in that river, you're dead. You'll drown. So don't fall in there. Okay.
And he made sure you were awake before you got there by what?
He woke us up in the middle of the night and said, all right. And it took 30 minutes to get
hit the brakes though.
Oh, well, that was a different time he took us up there. That's when he tried to shoot a bird that was eating a rabbit in the road.
A crow.
Yeah, we were going out there, and it was just daylight, actually. And all of a sudden, me and Buddy and Mike are in the back seat sleeping, and him and Fuzzy in the front. And Merle was driving, and all of a sudden he slammed the brakes on this highway, and we all hit the back of the front seat, jarred us. We didn't have seat belts in those days. And what the hell's going on? And Merle reached underneath his front seat and pulled out a .22 pistol and threw his door open and jumped out on the highway and started firing away at this crow that was eating a rabbit on the other side of the road. And he unloaded this thing's flying away, and he's going bang, bang, bang. He's trying to shoot it because I hate those son of a bitches. And he missed him, of course. And we're like, wow, we didn't even know he had a gun. And Fuzzy loved it. He was laughing so hard. Merle puts the gun back underneath the seat, and we go up to fish. So we get fishing. We're fishing away, and Merle catches a thing called a sucker, which is this terrible fish that was eating worms and stuff that meant for a nice trout up there, not a damn sucker. And I'd never seen one before. We'd never been fish. He pulls it out of there, and he says, "Oh no, damn!" He took it off and threw it underneath a rock, underneath a bush rather, and he pulls that damn gun out again, and he shot that fish 6 times. Pow, 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 pow. And me and Buddy and Mike are like, what in the world is this guy with the gun? He goes, I hate those son of a bitches. Put the gun back into his holster wherever he had it, and we were like, what? So I seen him like 20 years later, and I said, Merle, he was at a concert, I say, backstage, I say, Merle, do you remember the time you shot the fish? And he said, yeah, Ray. He goes, I imagine I've just always been a show-off. He was clever. He was very, very funny, very witty. But he was off the top of his head all the time. Roger Miller was one of his best friends. He loved Roger Miller's witticisms.
Oh, that's interesting. Roger Miller was one of those cornpone kind of guys, but with great wisdom.
Oh, king of the road, man.
Yeah.
You can't roller skate in a buffalo herd. You ever heard that one?
A great truism. Really, that's definitely one of those things you want to make sure that you teach your kids. Don't be roller skating in a buffalo herd.
He wrote England Swings.
Like a pendulum do.
Oh, just gorgeous songs. Husbands and Wives. It's one of the most prettiest songs you ever heard in your life. But he was also funny. He wrote funny songs too. He had 7 Grammys in one night. At the time, it was the record for one night. He even beat the Beatles for Song of the Year. He was up against this song called Yesterday, but his song was King of the Road, and it won Song of the Year.
King of the Road beat Yesterday.
Merle told us a story. He came home from a tour, and he said, yeah, I went to Roger Miller's house. And he goes, Merle, you might want to write more songs than you've been writing. If I was you, I'd write a bunch of songs. You possibly can. I think he lived in New Mexico. And Merle says, well, yeah, I've been writing. He goes, well, let me show you my check I got. And this is, 1965, maybe 66. Merle says that check was $70,000. And Merle says, I think I better get to writing. And, of course, he made millions.
Wow, that's fantastic. What a great story.
Roger Miller.
Roger Miller.
He loved Roger Miller.
Wisdom comes in interesting packages.
Yeah, all of those people that were famous in that day really appreciated Merle's humanity, his humility, and his talent. I mean, they were all, and write his songs. I mean, it's amazing his legacy, and it will grow, and it'll never go away.
Give me a little bit of insight, like when he's in a recording studio, how did some of that stuff go along? You got to see that up close and personal as a very, very young fella.
I got to watch him record The Bottle Let Me Down at Capitol Records in June of 1966. I was 15 years old.
Oh, my goodness.
And he let me come in there and sit in the Capitol Records studio.
If you can be quiet, right?
That's what he said. He goes, you've got to be quiet. You can't make a sound. And I was the only one allowed down there to watch him record. I was 20 feet from him and Glenn Campbell and Bonnie and James Burton. Remarkable. A song called The Bottle Let Me Down, which he wrote, which is now a standard in country music. But I was there. I watched it. And Ken Nelson, the well-known Capitol producer, legendary producer, it probably, I'm going to guess, took 3 hours, and it seems like they had 45 takes. Just kept doing it over and over and over again. And when they finally got it done, they went up into the control room where Ken Nelson was working with some help. And they said, well, you've got a masterpiece. It was a #1 song. I was there. I watched it. I watched him record Peach Pickin' Time in Georgia a couple of years later. Same place, Capitol Records in Hollywood. I was there. I got to watch it. I watched him record a couple other things later in his life, but nothing really of any note. I wasn't around a lot for those, but the ones I was long before he became a superstar.
Just being sort of elbow to elbow with the producers, arrangers, the people right there in that studio, it was so instantly point of this is a hit. That was so clear to them.
Oh, yeah. These country music songs, I mean, each night I leave the bar room when it's over. You know, I did some interviews with him that were on, I've got it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, Raymond H. McDonald. He let me interview him about some songs that he'd written and sang through the years. And he explained exactly how he wrote the songs, why he wrote the songs. And they're all maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. If somebody ever wants to go on there and look at them, it's Merle in his finest. It was about 2015, about a year or two before he died. We did those interviews. But here, I'd never seen anything like it. And again, it didn't seem like it was me. It was this guy interviewing Merle, and Merle's telling how he did these songs. And it's remarkable that he let me do that. He wanted me to do it. He wanted me to interview him. So I did. But that's something, if you're a Merle Haggard fan, you might want to go and watch that.
Well, you know, all our podcasts go out on the traditional media, you know, with Spotify, etc. We also put an actual audio podcast on YouTube.
Wow.
And on YouTube, you know, one of my good friend's picture is attached to each one of our YouTube episodes. For those of you out there with YouTube, you may want to use this as a little bit of a springboard to go out there and grab Ray's interviews with Merle Haggard, get a little bit of a personal touch toward the end of Merle Haggard's life from somebody who had seen him through 45 or 50 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing
Yeah.
stretch of history.
Yeah, I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
And I knew that I needed to keep in touch with him through the years. You know, of course, I went and had my own family, my own life for a long time, but I always kept in touch with him. And then I wound up working for him in '98 for a year. His office manager died, and I took over his office and took care of his children. And then in 2001, I got a divorce, so I went and worked for him in his living room for a year as his office manager, personal assistant. I even got to play rhythm guitar for him while he practiced his lead guitar. I'd do that for an hour or two. I was good enough to rehearse him, and that was part of my job. Oh, playing rhythm guitar for Merle Haggard while he rehearses? Yeah, I can do that. And then later on, I became his bus driver. He wanted me to drive a bus. He knew I had limousine experience driving in Bakersfield. And he hired me, and I drove him for almost, 5 years of his career at the end. And I drove 1 year in the band bus before. He wanted to make sure I could drive before he let me drive his bus. 5 years of pure bliss, watching this man go all over America, singing his songs to his fans hundreds of times. I figured I watched 700 or more Merle Haggard shows.
Okay, Ray, we're going to need to wrap this up. I want to thank our audience for their attention and appreciation to our podcast, thesenioredge.com. You can follow up our website, download anything that you might be interested in. Follow us on all of the traditional podcast channels. I can't thank you enough for this, Ray. This has been a special opportunity. I've known you for a long time, but not this way.
I appreciate it, man. I really do. I thank you for letting me be your first guest on the Senior Edge. It's a very edgy podcast.
I hope so.
Very edgy.
I hope so.
And you know how seniors are. We're edgy.
They're definitely edgy.
And no one can what's the word? See, when you get senior, you can tell when you get senior because you don't know what the hell you're going to say a lot.
Well,
you forget about what you like right now. And please don't edit this out because it's true. You forget what the hell you're going to say, where you're going, what are I thinking yesterday. I'm 75 years old. Just a baby. Well, that's a Merle Haggard line. I borrowed stuff like that from him.
You're just a baby.
Some guy came on the bus one time, and Merle never met him, and he says, "How old are you?" And the guy goes, "I'm 58." And Merle goes, "Oh, you're just a baby." So anyway, yeah, I appreciate you letting me be on the Senior Edge. It's fun. We'll have to talk some more about good old Merle.
We've got more interviews coming down the pike. I would like to leave the invitation open to come back, and when you've got additional thoughts on this and maybe some interesting things about Merle Haggard and your own life for that matter, that you share those with us in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
Thanks, everyone.
Woohoo! Russ and I have completed our first interview podcast for the Senior Edge. We can't thank Ray McDonald enough for spending his afternoon with us. We hope you enjoyed our interview. His book, Merle Haggard Was a Friend of Mine, is available on bookbaby.com. Merle Haggard was a country music superstar, and we want this podcast episode to honor Merle and educate young, old, and new fans about his legacy. The personal and loving memories Ray shared gave us a rare opportunity to get to know both Merle and Ray. Ethan Hawke's documentary Highway 99, a double album, received great reviews after its presentation at the 2025 Telluride Film Festival. Bakersfield, California, Merle's hometown, is abuzz with the anticipation of its commercial release.
Merle Haggard and Ray McDonald are wonderful examples of invention and reinvention, regardless of age. Sin and I created the Senior Edge to help all of us appreciate those who made and are making our world a better place. We welcome comments and suggestions. Please email us and send them to russ@thesenioredge.com or sin@thesenioredge.com. Our special thanks must go to Dave Campbell of howtopodcast.ca. Dave sparked our interest in podcasting, then inspired us with his support and encouraged us to make our voices heard. His podcasts are, put simply, amazing. We also thank our friend Jen, who drove us to Pismo Beach, and her sweet pooch Pidgey. Jen continues to be a trusted sounding board for our ideas and plans. Please tune into our podcast, The Senior Edge, on any of the traditional platforms such as Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Most important, thank you to our listeners for your support of the Senior Edge podcast. May your journey through a long life be marked with kindness, love, and creativity more than your age. Count your years by making them count.
I'm gonna try it. I'm a washed up surfer, man. I'm a washed up surfer. I can't surf no more. I'm a washed up surfer, washed up to shore. I can't catch a wave, can't shoot the pier. All I do is sit around and drink beer, 'cause I'm a washed up surfer. I can't surf no more. I'm a washed up surfer, washed up to shore. My hair is white, my skin is brown. Everybody in this town knows I'm a washed up surfer. I can't surf no more. I'm a washed up surfer, washed up to shore. I can't paddle out, I can barely swim. I can't catch a girl, I can't hang 10. I'm a washed up surfer, I can't surf no more. I'm a washed up surfer, washed up to shore. I can't see close, I can't see far. I sold my board to Harry's bar. I'm a washed up surfer, I can't surf no more. I'm a washed up surfer, relegated to a boogie board. I'm a washed up surfer, can't surf no more. I used to surf all summer long, just like the words to a Beach Boys song. I'm a washed up surfer. I can't surf no more. I'm a washed up surfer, washed up to shore. All right, Monty, that's my silly song.